Hey friends, good Monday morning. Happy Monday motivation. Welcome to part 8. Rufus, you want to come join? You want to come up here and join? He came running. He was downstairs eating. He just came running up here. No, you don't need to eat that. No, sir. That's not for you. That's for someone who hasn't paid for their eBay purchases yet, but I want to pack it so I can get it out of here. Know what I mean? No, that's the pile of loot, buddy. You don't need to eat that stuff. I don't know if y'all can see his little nose going. But part 8 of the Is Collecting Bad series. I think it's going to be part 8 of 10. I think this will be a 10-part series. As you can see, I am just getting crunched in. Kind of fitting, I guess, with last week's episode, or 2 weeks ago, being on hoarding. The eBay stuff still going strong. Looking up there, looks like maybe 100 items, maybe 90 items left to sell. Get out of here. Hopefully that happens soon. And then we did get a pile of loot in, and you will see that video, I think, this Wednesday, if you haven't already seen it. Things are very much out of sequence for me. And I don't, so like those are figures that things I actually do want and will, and kind of have a place for, but I can't get to my shelves because I'm surrounded by eBay store. And then, again, this is somebody that bought something last night, hadn't paid for it yet. Let me tell you, a quick sidebar. Selling a bunch of stuff, and this isn't my, like we talked about, this is just the stuff we had in the storage unit. I'm embarrassed by how much we had, but that's the stuff we had in the storage unit, and it just stinks. I know why people take stuff to the toy store and get 30% of what they could get on eBay, or Facebook, or anywhere, because it just stinks. It takes forever. And, thankfully, most of my buyers have been positive, good people, easy to work with. But there's just always people that ask weird things, want weird things to happen, are not reasonable, or just take forever to pay. They click to buy, and then they don't pay for 3 days and never pay. It's a lot. So if you are, maybe through this series, you're deciding you're going to sell some stuff and move on from certain things, if that's what you've decided to do, or whatever the case may be, just know you have a lot of patience selling your stuff. That's one of the reasons why we did the fire sale with Josh and David and Steve and Jared and everybody that helped us do that years ago now at this point. Of course, Natalie, that was kind of the first time I met Natalie. We had just kind of been introduced. It's just fire sale worked because it was quick, but it was a terrible 10 days, 8 to 10 days. I had to take off work, work all day, every day, 18, 20-hour days to get it all out of here. But then doing it like this also was just poopy. So it's really not a good way if you want to maximize your value. No, but you don't need to go over there to the G.I. Joe. Hey, just lay down. Ruthie, look at the good people right here. It's Monday motivation. You're a very motivating puppy. Look at them. You see them? Look, they're there. You see them over there? You just look. You think I don't have a treat. Anyway, let's get on with it. Part 8 of Is Collecting Bad, Rufus? Rufus, do you think collecting's bad? You have a big collection of toys, And we only get rid of things when they break because you tend to play with all your toys. You like them all. You play with different toys every day. So, do a little rehash. We talked about, is collecting bad? Are we collecting? Are we accumulating? Are we addicted? Do we have rules of collecting? Is this OCD? What about completism? We talked about the influence of Saturday morning cartoons and FOMO, and then we talked about hoarding, and then we talked about priorities and making sure your priorities were right. And this one is kind of aligned with that. And it's, what do other people think? What do other people think about your collection? Now, if you've been a longtime viewer of my channel, longtime viewer, maybe going back 5 years, I think is probably right. I did a series called Meet the Dubs. So, my channel has actually been around for 10 years. I used to just post random nonsense on YouTube because my whole life, I've done silly things or tried to convince my friends or family to do silly things, and we just didn't have a way to video it and share it with anybody. But if you talk to somebody like Steve or Andrew, like people that have known me forever, obviously like Victoria, we've just done silly things. And so right when YouTube started letting you upload from a phone, 2012, 2013. Something funny would happen, and I just uploaded a 20-second clip. Kind of what YouTube Shorts are now. I've since deleted all those because they were, grainy, couldn't tell what they were, whatever. But if you go back to, so I deleted all those, kind of the earliest videos that are public right now on my account. You'll see like some hunt videos and stuff when I'm fumbling around trying to get going with this type of content. But I do a series called Meet the Dubs, where I do an interview with all my family, with people like David and Andrew and Steve, and like people that have known me a long time. And we talk about, what are your thoughts about people that collect? What do you think about it? Especially with people like my mom and dad. We talked about it. So I'd encourage you, as kind of a sub series to this, go back and watch the Meet the Dubs. It has its own playlist. If I can link it, maybe I'll link it. And you can see, I especially encourage you to watch like my parents, the episodes with my parents. What, buddy? What? And that's kind of a precursor to this discussion. So we're not just going to talk about like what do other people think, but we're also going to talk about how do people influence you in your collection. So not FOMO, not marketing, not cartoons, but the own people you surround yourself with. I think that'll be important. So let's start off by saying everybody cares, at least to an extent, about what somebody thinks of them. Everybody. Anybody that says they just don't care what people think of them at all, that's not true. That's not true. Everybody cares about what certain people think of them, and everybody cares to an extent about what basically everybody thinks of them. Now, they may not care to a great deal, and they may want, they may not seek the biggest level of attention, but they don't want somebody to be mean to them or ugly to them or whatever. It's just the way most people are. You just care what someone else thinks of you. And why is that? Why is that true? So it's built into us. This is a study according to the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History, that joining a group or tribe and being accepted by others was critical to our survival as we as a species have grown as humans, right? Before we had a Necafunco section, hundreds, thousands of years ago, when we had to be tribes and we lived outdoors and we had hunters and gatherers and we had to survive, you couldn't do it alone. You just couldn't. I would argue you can't do it alone today, but back then you couldn't do it alone. You had to have a tribe that accepted you, that you are a part of, that it mattered to you what they thought about you to survive. It was critical to survival. So there's a part of our innate wiring, regardless of what you believe, that is, I need approval and acceptance of other people to survive as a human. So even though today we don't need tribes to survive, necessarily the way we're talking about thousands of years ago, we do need other people. We need them for stimulation, to help us have something interesting to do. We need them for companionship. We are social beings by design. Like Rufus here, we are pack animals, right? Rufus was downstairs eating. He heard me come upstairs and start the video. He ran up here. He's probably still hungry, but he's a pack animal. He's going to be with his pack. He wants to be with his people. He's a social animal, just like we are. So when we place weight on others' opinions, it's very natural. And largely it's unavoidable because that's the way we're wired. That's the way we are as a species. All humans have an innate desire to be with other humans and be accepted. So I saw a thing that was this certain a brain imaging study, right, where they can look at a brain and look at the way that the brain is reacting and firing off to different things. So biophysical reactions were shown in this study. A biophysical reaction meaning chemical responses, like we talked about dopamine before, to positive and negative feedback from others. So positive feedback makes our brain look a certain way. Negative feedback makes our brain another way. The fear of negative evaluation is especially strong. It's especially strong. So if those of you that, last month was performance review time, like where you cross over December into January, and my line at work, Natalie's, a lot of people's, depending if you're on a calendar year or a fiscal year, but if you're on a calendar year and you get reviews done at work where they judge your performance and give you a rating for the year, that's when it happens, December, January for us. A lot of people have anxiety that their review is going to be negative. Even if they felt like they did good, that they had a good year, that they're going to be received as negative. that they're going to be received as negative. And it is especially strong, this fear of a negative evaluation, for people who have social anxiety. What is social anxiety, Big Dub? What's that mean? Well, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to describe, but we've talked a lot about the way our brain processes stuff when we talk about OCD or completionism or FOMO or hoarding. There's a lot of psychological things going on. So social anxiety disorder, also called a social phobia, the intense anxiety or fear of being judged, negatively evaluated, or rejected in a social situation. Intense anxiety, fear of being judged, negatively evaluated, or rejected in a social situation. Social anxiety disorder affects approximately 15 million American adults. That's 6% of the adults in America have some sort of social anxiety disorder. People with low self-esteem, those who grew up without emotional support, maybe your parents were absent, maybe you didn't have siblings, you didn't have a lot of friends, they're also much more likely to be reliant on what somebody else thinks of them. Right? It's just justified. We care what people think of us. I can say I don't really care about the mean, nasty comments I do. I don't let them bother me for very long. But I read them, and then I block the person or I hide them from the channel. But even if it's only for 5 minutes, there's a part of me that says, why is this person like this? Why? Especially on this series, there'll be comments that just says, shut up, go, toy hunt, nobody cares what you have to say, you're stupid. Well, I know I'm not stupid. I graduated summa cum laude with a master's degree. You are commenting on YouTube with incorrect grammar and punctuation. So I know that the person calling me stupid is wrong, but it still hurts. Even if I delete the comment, I block the person, whatever. And because the way on YouTube, the way it works is you can't block them from viewing your channel. You can just block them from their comment being seen by anybody else. But they think their comment is being seen. So they're just in an echo chamber yelling at themselves, and they don't realize no one else can see them. It's kind of funny, actually, when you think about it. But it bothers me. Does it bother me very long? No. Does it make me want to quit YouTube? No. Some days, though, if there's enough of them, it makes you say, why do I do this? Because it's not for the financial benefit. If you watch Seth and Josh and Cody's stream the other day, they were talking about their money. I think Cody said he made Foxy for real, I think he said made $170 or something like that on YouTube for the year. Certainly not for the financial gain. So there's only so many hits you can take. And we care. We all care to a point what somebody thinks about us. For a lot of people, COVID also made it worse, right? If you already had social anxiety, you really were worried about going in public, you cared what people think about you, and you got removed from social situations for a period of time. All of us did for at least a period of time, regardless of your belief, your state, whatever. And then going back into the world could be hard for people. So, when we talk about others, for the sake of this conversation, I've got 4 categories of others. When we say, what do people think about you? And again, this is going back to the topic is collecting bad. What do other people think about what you do? This collecting, that you have a room full of action figures, right? 40-Year-Old Virgin used to be what most everybody thought about, right? That's why it was a popular movie, because that's what people thought. Times have changed. Thanos came, had the Infinity Gauntlet, and made nerddom popular. But is this popular? Certainly not. This is a very, very niche, tiny subculture of nerddom. And so what do other people think of us? Well, let's start. There's the first category of people. Complete strangers. People you don't know. People that you see in the toy aisle. People that, if you're a cosplayer, if you go to conventions, you wear nerd t-shirts, whatever, see you with your nerd t-shirt on, flying your nerd flag. What do they think of you? Story I always talk about is at Dragon Con, our biggest convention here in Atlanta, is always the same weekend as the college football kickoff games. And they're in the same general couple square blocks using the same hotels. So you'll have, for instance, I'll just use the University of Georgia because we're in Georgia. The University of Georgia fans coming to watch their team play. And then there'll be like a battalion of stormtroopers in the same hotel. And you can tell the University of Georgia fans, at least some of them are like, what's happening? Where are we? What are all these nerds doing? Now, a lot of them are like taking pictures and think it's cool, right? But they judge you. Complete strangers, should you really care? No, shouldn't care. These people that see you in the toy aisle and judge you because you're a grown adult in the toy aisle with no kid, doesn't matter now. Should you let that impact you? No. Now, could it make you feel a certain way? Sure, because like we talked about, we're all entitled to feel our feelings if somebody judges us. But I don't think that group matters, right? I don't think that should influence how much we collect, how we collect. They just don't understand. So that first category doesn't matter. Category 2, people in the toy community. This is an important category. Whether that is in person at conventions or wherever you see each other, through social media, through YouTube, watching YouTubers, comment section, Facebook groups, whatever. Do you care what those people think of you? I think a lot of people fall in the category and say, yes, I do care what those people think of me. Even though those people are also basically complete strangers. These are not people you've met. These are not people you've had to your home. You've only interacted with them through some sort of toy-based social media. But you care what they think about you, don't you? I know I had at times. I want to keep up with the Joneses. I want to post the big haul. Big Dubs, big hauls. I want to prove I can negotiate the biggest Hot Toys bundle at the convention. I want everybody to see that I do that. Now, am I consciously thinking that as it's happening? Of course I'm not. I'm not going, you know what? I'm going to buy 4 waves of Marvel Legends today so that I can just go, look at my Marvel Legends in a Facebook group. No, that's not what I'm thinking. But I do it, and then I post it, and I care how many likes there are. I care how many people are commenting or saying, wow, that's an incredible haul. Look at that. I wish that I could keep up with that. How in the world do you afford all that? Blah, 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 blah. That's clout chasing, and a lot of us do it. And the keeping up with the Joneses on socials goes back a little bit what we talked about with FOMO, right? Like, I see somebody do it, I want to be better than them. You want to have the best toy YouTube channel, the more subscribers, the more comments. I want my collection video to have the most views. I don't want Talker Arts to be it. I want mine. I want to have the best collection. Based on an arbitrary group of likes and comments by strangers. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. Is that good? Well, I can say with certainty it's not good. I can say with certainty that it challenges you from doing what you need to do. Now, that doesn't mean you can't share the hobby with people. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying for me, when I was trying to keep up with the Joneses and now I'll show them what a real collector is, or look at this haul, it made my collecting bad. It made me buy things not because I wanted them, but because I needed to buy something. Because I needed to add a few more things to the haul. Oh, wait a second. I can get 2 more Hot Toys at an even better price, and then I'll have 8 instead of 6 for the picture? Yeah, I'll do it. Even if I didn't collect Star Wars, and next thing I know, I got 15 Star Wars Hot Toys. It's not good. So when you think about what do the people in the toy community think about you, they need to go closer to that first category of it doesn't matter than when we move down to the further categories, right? But unfortunately, a lot of us, we place the most weight on that. If you do YouTube, I know a lot of people do YouTube now. A lot of people are trying to get channels off the ground, a couple hundred subscribers. They're working. Don't chase that clout. Don't do it. Again, if you heard Josh and Seth and Cody's stream the other day, talking about kind of why they were exiting the hobby to the extent, whatever they are, they talked about the thousands, literally thousands of dollars that they spent just on equipment, on editing programs, on laptops, microphones, for YouTube to make $180, or Josh, I think he said he made $3,000 or $4,000 last year on YouTube. That doesn't offset spending buying a $1,000 camera and a $2,000 laptop and a $2,500 desktop. Like it doesn't offset it. But you get into this rhythm of chasing the clouds, of doing the next thing and the next thing. I am proud of myself that I have only ever filmed on my iPhone, and I edit on iMovie, which is free. There are devices I already have. I already have an iPhone. I already have a MacBook that I have for personal reasons. Just it's my personal computer, and I already have iMovie. I don't pay for any of it. Now, at times, have I bought a camera? I bought a little Osmo Pocket like Seth did, thinking, oh, maybe I'll do. I fell into that trap a couple years ago. I've used it like 5 times. Gave it to Kai. Let Kai have it play with. It's not worth it. Chasing that clout will lead to you getting in a bad place with your collection. And ultimately, it leads to burnout. because you're not doing it for the reasons that you started doing it. So I just caution those of you who do have a YouTube channel or are interested in it, just use your phone to start with and edit on your phone. You don't spend any money on that. If you got a phone that's within the last 5 years, and just use the free tools and go through there. And if you decide you really like it and it's part of a hobby that you enjoy, then maybe invest some money into it. But if you're doing it to hope you get more views or comment, it's not right. It's not good. Friend group. Group number 3. Your friend groups, especially your close friends. What do they think about your collecting? I think this is the first time it matters what they think. What do the people in your life that you actually see and spend time with think? Do they think, oh, that's awesome, he's got an incredible collection? Or do you don't know what they think? Here's a good question. Do you share it with them or do you hide it? Think about your friends in your life, the friends that come over to your house. When they come over, do you proudly show them your toy room? Or do you keep that door closed? Do you proudly show them the tubs that have your figures in it? Or do you keep those hidden away? If the answer is you hide it, you should be asking yourself, what am I doing? Has it gotten too far? Now, your close friends, your friends that matter, shouldn't care what you do, right? They should only care if they believe it's getting out of control, right? They don't have to understand. And if you're like, hey, I've got this, I'm comfortable, I do all the other things right, I've got this shelf of action figures, and maybe my friends don't like it and they make fun of me about it, well, that may not be as close a friend as you think they are. Your closest friends shouldn't care. But they should care if it's taking control of your life, if it's impacting you. Somebody on one of my Is Collecting Bad videos said today that they felt like that their collection had got control of them and it was causing them to put their life on pause because of their collecting. I thought that was a very honest and transparent statement. I pinned that comment. I appreciate that person because that's a very honest, transparent thing. And that's a thing you have to think about, right? If you're embarrassed of your collection in front of your friends, why? Are you doing anything wrong? Are they not the greatest friend for you? My toy room literally doesn't have doors. Right here is a big double French doors. We took them off. Anybody that comes to my home can see this stuff. I'm proud of my collection. Does everybody understand it? No. Would I invite my coworkers, my boss over here? Probably not. Because they may not quite understand it, right? They may not quite understand. They may say, maybe you make a little bit too much money. We get a pay cut. But I'm proud of it. And in my group of friends, I got multiple that don't collect at all, that don't understand this thing, but think it's cool. And think that the hobby's fine and I'm doing fine as long as I take care of the rest of my responsibilities. Moving to our 4th group, your family. Whether by blood, by marriage, whatever. The people you call your family, maybe you're really, really close friends that you treat like family. It's the exact same question. Are you proud of it or are you ashamed of it? Do they know that you collect or do you hide it? Have they seen your collection? Do you keep it locked behind a door? If it's locked behind a door, why? And it's not because you collect. Maybe it's just because you've gone too far. You've gone too deep. Or maybe it's, there was a time not that long ago in my life. I'm in my early 40s. When I was 29, 12, 13 years ago, 29, I had a college degree. I was in graduate school. I had a full-time job. I could not afford, I was living in a single wide trailer that a family was letting me live in for very low cost. And I could not afford at the time, I was a teacher, but teachers don't make a lot of money. And I had, some other challenges from some other things in my life. And I could not afford, I had to pick between electricity or heat, because the heat was a gas bill. I couldn't afford both. That's just 12, 13 years ago in my life. At that point, that's when I sold all my collection, that you heard me talk about to pay for graduate school. If I had been buying Marvel Legends then, my friends and family would have had a problem with it. Brian, you can't afford the heat. Why are you buying an action figure? I didn't collect anything at that time. I didn't collect anything for many years during that time. And if I had been, I'd have been hiding it. I'd have been ashamed. Because look at the rest of my life. It's in shambles, yet I'm buying ththings I shouldn't be buying. And, for a little while, I had all those vintage Ninja Turtles, and I'd stash them away. I wouldn't let anybody see them, because why are you sitting on all this if you can't afford the heat, right? It was hard. It was a hard time in my life. So I had to make choices and make decisions, and I had to be introspective and say, all right, I got to move on from these things to get my life in check. And then and only then, when my life is back in check and I have it, then I will rebuild a collection. Another thing to think about with your family: do they support it? Do they participate? Collecting is a lot better if you do it with your family. I'm having the most fun collecting I've ever had. Even though we're making a series right now on Is Collecting Bad, and I'm actively selling stuff on eBay, I'm having as much fun collecting right now as I ever have, because I get to do it with the girls, especially with Kaya, and helping her get things that she's interested in and the different animes, and going to stores and signings and all that together with her is a lot of fun. So if you can do it with your family, it's great. It's great. So when we think about what do people think about you, I don't know what people think about you. I can't give as much advice in this, because I know the people in my life that matter know that I do this. I don't hide it. I'm generous. They see how generous I am. I take care of the people in my life. So nobody questions it. I think probably all of them say, well, maybe it's a little bit too much. Maybe it's a little bit too much. But you're not giving up anything else, so who am I to say? But you should take an inventory. How do I feel about the complete strangers? How do I feel about the toy community? Am I chasing clout there? How do my friends group? How do my family? But a little preview of Is Collecting Good? This hobby can bring people all the way through these 4 groups into you. A person could start out as a complete stranger that you meet in the toy aisle, and they happen to see you looking at the same thing they're looking at. And maybe they find out that you like toys too, and they help. Oh, did you know that there's a local action figure group, Facebook group? You should join it. We help each other find stuff. And next thing you know, now I'm in a group number 2. I'm in the toy community with this person that was a complete stranger. You get to know them, you do things together, and they become a close friend, a friend group. And eventually they may become family. How can I say this? Because that's who David is to me. David and I met as complete strangers because we both shopped at the same toy store. Our buddy Adonis's toy store that was in the swap meet, we just both shopped there. And Adonis said, I think you two guys, you're doing the same stuff, you should meet each other. And now I view David as a brother. And we went all the way through those groups together. Started off, we'll just kind of chat, we're all shopping in the same area. Then he became a close friend. Now we're like brothers. That's a great thing that this hobby can do. And any hobby. Remember, when we're talking about collecting, it's collecting anything. It's not just collecting action figures. Anything can be this. But it can also move people out of your life. And this is our final thing we'll talk about today. Just like any other hobby, it's easiest to talk about when you talk about like drinking, right? Like if you were a drinker early in your life, or now, or whenever, and in college, you had the college drinking buddies, right? You had the college drinking buddies. And you knew that if you went out with this particular group of buddies, things were going to get out of control. You're going to spend too much. You're going to drink too much. You're going to do too much. And eventually as you go, if they don't change, I'm going to have to distance myself from them because it hurts who I want to be as a person. That same thing can happen with toys. Transparently, when the group of us get together, you see multiple of us together, we're not great influences on each other because we're also, buy it. Yeah, buy it. It's great. Buy it. Spend it. Buy it. And then we've all spent way too much money because that's the way that thing works. And David and I have had this conversation in the last few months. We got to do better about that. And like the last time we went out for his birthday, we bought hardly anything. Whereas usually we'd buy a bunch of stuff if we're together because you feed off of each other. And it doesn't mean you have to abandon those friends. It means you need to have some honest conversations and say, hey, when we go out, maybe we'll just bring cash and no cards, or maybe we'll budget ourselves or whatever. We're going to hold each other accountable to not go crazy when we're together and not feed that, because it's part of what happens. But sometimes you have to just minimize your time with people because they're not a good influence on what you need to do to go forward in your life. That's a complicated topic, right? It's a complicated topic. But I encourage you, take a self-reflection in your behavior to how people treat you and ask yourself, are things in line? Are things in healthy? Like for me, the negative comments, that side of stuff, the toy groups, the Instagram, I'm trying to limit severely how much time I'm spending in that social media, because it doesn't have a very positive impact on me. It just doesn't. And so I'd encourage you to do the same thing. I hope you're having a great Monday. I think we're almost to March as you're watching this. Maybe we're in March. And so hopefully your first 2 months of the year went great. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Next week, we're going to talk about an end point in collecting. Is it possible to have an end point in collecting? And if so, what is that end point? How do you reach it? How do you stop? That's next week's topic. And then the final week, week 10, we'll wrap it up. Kind of a summary of, is collecting bad? I appreciate all the support for this series. I'll talk to you next week.